So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Ton to the stage. A very quick introduction, a funny fact, and what you invest in.
Thanks, Johnny. So my name is Stoffel Norton. I'm the CEO and general partner of 01 Ventures, which is essentially targeting 150 million euros to invest in 20 to 25 companies in tickets of 1 to 3 million. In the next 5 years in themes of decentralization, intelligent IoT, edge computing, mesh networks, energy storage, quantum, robotics, so the foundational technology that Europeans are traditionally really good at, but bad at selling or selling too early. That's it. That's me.
Great. And next up is Peter Vogelaar. Lekker.
Nice. Thanks. My name is Peter Vogelaar. I'm a blockchain strategy consultant for regular traditional companies, who you may all know. Been involved in equity direct investments for the past 10 years. And now focusing on pre-sales, also some traditional equity, and advising on companies how to do STOs in the coming few years.
Super, thanks a lot. Next up is David. Please come up. Woo!
Thank you. Hello, yeah, I'm David. So I'm the founder of Trung VC. So basically, we've been around since 2014 during the Ethereum ICO, and then last year we made about 60 plus investments, seed level token investments. This year we're not really focused on investing that much, more on building, but yeah, looking forward to a good conversation.
Nice shirt, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Then we have Mark Vesselink.
Thank you. So I'm a company builder. I've built 12 companies myself, failed 4 times, so yeah, that helps.
That's experience.
But also sold 2, also 1 IPO, but also 2 bankruptcies. So I've done it all. And I've started a company called Startup Bootcamp to help starting other entrepreneurs. So together with our partners, we've built now 720 companies worldwide. Learned a shitload because I was responsible for the alumni, and I was also some sort of a shit umbrella. So I'm going to apply all those learnings in the next 10 years, because since 1st of October, I've quitted Startup Bootcamp, so that's hot off the needle. But I'm going to build a securitized fund, securitized token fund, who will be investing in 150 companies a year, fully automated, using, of course, the newest technologies, what we're all discussing about.
Cool.
But based on real metrics and no bullshit metrics.
We like that. We like that. Cool. Next up, we have Kai from Blockport. Woo!
Thank you, guys. First of all, thanks all for being here. My name is Kai Benning. I'm one of the founders of Blockport and also the chief strategy. I'm among giants here tonight. I don't have a lot of experience with investing. I've always been sitting on the other side of the table trying to raise funds. A fun fact, not really. My second name is Kain. Okay, no one gets it.
Wait, can you say your full name then?
Then it's good.
Great. So I'm just going to jump straight. You can keep the microphone, man. We're going to jump straight into it and talk about STOs. Lots of people say that they're the future. Do you guys have any input? Maybe a definition of an STO in your opinion?
I think Peter has an answer to this because I heard him talk about STOs.
Yeah.
They're absolutely the future. But it depends a bit on the horizon you take. So I do believe in STOs, and I also do believe in that we should see how we can have the industry work together with regulators on getting that accepted and adopted in the Netherlands as soon as possible. Had to get that whole system going. So that's what I'm aiming for and I'm looking for.
I'm not sure if you actually said what an STO was, but anyway, it's a financial security. But before I continue, I just want to say it feels like we're back in the 1990s. I mean, we're having an all-male panel, and the audience is predominantly male. So I'm not sure. Maybe one of the things that I could maybe potentially do is actually give my seat, or maybe ask maybe a female investor to join this panel to make it a little bit more diverse. Maybe Ariana, you should join. Maybe.
You want to join?
Yeah.
I will jump in.
If needed.
Okay, well, at least a statement made, so apologies for accepting the panel. But no, I mean, it's a financial security, it's either asset-backed or it's backed by revenue or profit. And I think it's quite interesting because we're seeing right now that we're entering the throw of disillusionment in blockchain right now. And actually, we're seeing a movement back towards traditional financial models like what you do as a VC. So I actually find it pretty curious that we're on this level right now. So I would say an STO is a first step towards a professional model. But it's also going to cause a lot of troubles because you're not going to keep a decentralized organization much longer. So that's it.
I was talking to someone earlier and they said they wanted this panel to be a bit more interesting and some clashes. So I'll go against the grain. I think STOs can provide value, but a lot of the hype around them is just bullshit. Because I think that when you look at STOs and you look at the type of people that will buy STOs, it's gonna be like institutionals, right? Everyone thinks that STO is going to open up sort of securities for everyone, like retail investors. But there's so much like regulation around that. If you want to buy Apple stock right now, you still have to go through all these, laws and KYC stuff. So I don't think there'll be a massive difference. I think institutionals will still, buy it. But then why would institutional buy into STOs when they can just buy stocks or equity or like normal instruments? So I think STOs are definitely overhyped for me.
Everything is overhyped. It's a hype cycle. That's why they invented the hype cycle almost. But it solves three major problems of building a company. Very simple. Because a lot of investors, they find it really difficult to invest in seed stage companies. And now you can build stages in it. So you can say first tranche, second tranche. Second, you can also incentivize a large network who help building the companies. And thirdly, liquidity. I've invested over 40 companies myself, and through Startup Bootcamp, 720. And one of the major issues is liquidity in your investment. On average, your money is gone for 7 years, but in peak 12 and in low 5. So with this tool, you can create also liquidity, so you attract investors. Because at the end, Ton is investing in later stage, but if everybody is starting investing in later stage, the early stage, the seed, we need to put more seeds into the ground to have more sunflowers for you.
Kai, did you have a?
Yeah, sure. Short note. Of course, we did an ICO with Blockport. I think we were very successful. Of course, the timing was also perfect, I think. But I think now with this new trend towards STOs is a very natural trend. I agree there were a lot of shit ICOs last year, the year before. And in that sense, STOs provide a more protective and regulated way to do an ICO in a way and allow accredited investors to invest in a part of a company in a very simple and global way. Basically utilizing the power of internet, allowing people to invest in your company. And the nice thing I think of STOs as well is that you are able as a company also to build in certain regulatory compliance requirements that are necessary in order to do fundraising in all kinds of jurisdictions and countries in a very effective way. So in that sense, I think STOs have, it's not only a hype, I do think that there's some actual value in it.
Okay, and that's where traditionally...
Sorry, can I just put a counterpoint to that? So I still stand by my point. The thing is, when you're doing security tokens, you still need lockup periods, right? So you're not going to get that massive liquidity, early liquidity. But can you imagine if you had a startup and has early liquidity for like all the early investors? Like they would jump ship straight away. It would basically be for the greatest fool, right? So I don't think that necessarily is a good thing. I mean, like Ton, like if you make an investment into a seed stage startup, right? You're there for 10 years. Can you imagine if like investors invested and they're out at the first sign of trouble? I think, yeah.
I mean, again, it's essentially, we're reinventing the wheel because, I mean, in the professional, I would say in the more traditional, professional and plain vanilla venture structure that I'm in with our fund, we have secondary markets, we have liquidity that's available for first time, for founders that, want to convert. There's liquidity for early employees that actually want to get out. So Like I said, this is just, it's way too early to actually really consider STO as a model. For me, it feels like, yeah, it's a good step towards potentially a hybrid model, but I haven't seen the actual value of the whole model yet.
So I want to add one thing, because I never believe if you use an STO for seed stage, yeah, only when you have show that you have able to execute and create value and profit. But structure it from the start will make you compliant from the start, because compliancy in seed stage is total shit. Still.
Do you have any comments, any of you, on in terms of STO regulation here in the Netherlands?
So I do believe that if we in the Netherlands can embrace this model, we can also make a difference in Europe, because at the end Europe has a huge problem compared to creating companies in the US and Asia. And if we can embrace this in a regulated way, compliant way, then it will be much easier to start, fund, but also keep supporting companies. And I truly believe that the Holland regulators can play a role in that. So we can get all the London startups to the Holland, and the Brexit, and then make Amsterdam the capital of startup Europe.
Amen to that. That's what we all want. I have a Dutch passport, even though I'm English, by the way, so I'm safe. Thanks. So that's where obviously traditional startups have their traditional way of funding. And right now, if we look at the blockchain ecosystem, the blockchain startups may be the earliest to adopt STOs. Are there any differences from the way that you see kind of blockchain startups versus traditional startups, how they operate, maybe the teams? Because lots of the things that happen in ICOs, these guys are just not ready to manage the money, not mature enough.
At least one difference that I see is they get a shitload of money on forehand, and then if there's not enough track from investors, that can take a long while. That can take them a long while, and they can spend 1.5 years and even come up with nothing. And in a traditional equity investment, it's usually staged, and that's what I like about STOs. When you have securitized tokens, you can also apply that same model. Simply stack it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say there's a lot of differences, but essentially the primary one being not only necessarily that the fact that they have more funding available right now, which is of course going to change because we're going to work towards a milestone-based investment model where we actually have to deliver, and based on that we're going to commit more equity, we're going to commit more capital. But the major issue that I see is again, founding teams are not set up properly. In the end, building a company is about 3 things. It's about resilience, execution power, and perseverance. And it's also a little bit about experience and how to build, talent around yourself. So the most of the blockchain companies and founders that I speak, they have ridiculously big visions, which is on the one hand fantastic because we want to see that vision, but they're not going to change the entire supply chain from start to finish in let's say 18 months. So I'm looking for more realistic founders that actually go for a slightly slower model. So keep the vision, but make sure you implement it in changes and actually go towards a model that generates revenue or some kind of profit or some kind of traction or network effect, and then build it from there. So I think that's the major difference between that. So I would say it's a little bit more immature, unrealistic in terms of founders' perspectives.
Sure. So what I've found, I think last year there was projects raising funds just for the money, and that was sort of all the scammy stuff, except for Blockport, and they had some good projects come out of it, right? But so I think this year one of the terms in the industry that we use is called Generalized Mining, and basically that means is you're no longer just getting investors to come on board to give you money. Essentially, they have a role to play in your network, right? So you need to make sure that the crypto economics work out. So we have a lot of sort of new projects. Let's say I think LivePeer is one. They have really cool generalized mining where essentially the investors are coming in and actually being actors on the network. Or like A16Z Crypto, they invested in MakerDAO, because they're actually working within the protocol. So I think that's a big difference that I see in a lot of projects now.
Exactly, and you can use the security token to easily get the noses into the same direction. That's a little bit Dutch, but
You can use normal tokens.
True, but then again, you also have another economy attached to it. But if you have everybody an incentive to build something, I 100% agree.
So the initial question was, is there a difference between traditional startups and blockchain startups,
Yeah.
right? So I don't think there's much of a difference, honestly. A big difference, I think, also when you look at Blockport, is that we are, and a lot of blockchain startups, is that they're very community driven. In a sense, that is their way of building a governance mechanism around the startup in order to hold the founders and the team accountable for what they do. And that's actually what's happening at Blockport as well. We have a huge community. This is actually a huge part of our community sitting here that constantly holds us accountable for what we do. In a way, that is very similar to what investors do, only then with 10x or 100x.
Okay. One last comment on this question.
I mean, so I was talking to this this blockchain company. Actually, I can actually also name it. It's called State as I Am, a couple of months ago, and brilliant guys, right? Decentralized team, fantastic setup. And then, of course, you know, the question is what they're going to do with the money, and they're trying to build this incubator in different cities. And I was just asking a question. So, you know, what's your next step? What's your strategy? And actually, the answer to every question that I had, yeah, we have to consult with the entire community. And so I don't think that actually works. That's also one of the, I think, why the failure rate in blockchain projects is so high. I'm not a big fan of top-down and leadership, but I think there needs to be some kind of leadership in the company. So maybe a hybrid model will work, and maybe hopefully we'll actually shift towards a different model, which I'm actually pretty excited about. Not from a venture perspective, because it's going to kill my business, but going from ownership towards stewardship, where you actually take care of the assets of a company without actually getting ownership. But maybe that's something we'll see in the future.
Is it a quick comment?
Maybe a good question to ask to all of you, because Peter and Mark and I were just discussing this new model that is basically a hybrid version, an extension of an ICO. It's called the DICO, where the funds that are being raised by a project are then fairly distributed, correct me if I'm wrong, fairly distributed based on KPIs that are being met, and holders or certain actors in the network that have a certain amount of authority are able to grant or ungrant them the funds to proceed with their project. So I'm really curious to know, is that a hybrid version, for example, Ton, that you are looking for? Or is that something different?
I say yes.
I mean, the DICO, or actually, how do you pronounce it? I mean, last year in Berlin, I was talking to actually one of the essential principal developers of Ethereum, Christoph Jens. And Christoph Jens was one of the original builders, and the comments of, you know, it was all Vinay, of course, about Ethereum was, it looks like it's built by children, or, because actually, essentially, it was built by really young developers. Yeah. But the interesting point that he actually made, he's now building a company called Slug IT, or Slug It, and it's essentially trying to use blockchain and combine it with IoT, making sure that developers that are building something on their own traditional software can actually use the blockchain to build something. And his comments were actually, I helped actually create this vision about this white paper about the DICO, but I actually don't even believe in it anymore. So I'm going to go for a traditional round of funding, seed Series A, and then I might do an ICO or a combined model. So that's just something I'm seeing in the market right now today.
Cool, thanks for sharing. You mentioned IoT in your last comment. Do you guys have an opinion on or insights into what's going to happen in regards to the combination of blockchain, IoT, and AI? And is this something you guys foresee as a kind of game-changing combination of technologies?
Well, I mean, just to start off then, I mean, we're entering an era of global science, which essentially means that, and that's also why with the 0-1, we're back in the infrastructure layer of the future of technology. So, I mean, we're going to see the convergence of tech. If you look at the Gartner hype cycle we just mentioned, things are going to change pretty rapidly, and they're going to change pretty rapidly in a lot of sectors at the same time. So we're going to see, hopefully, some kind of convergence between, let's say, DLT and machine learning. I haven't seen really great, successful examples, but looking at, for example, the opportunity that you have with decentralized technology, for example, you know, within looking at models like energy or time or you know, computing power, and if you start doing that and those type of opportunities, they become really interesting really fast.
Absolutely believe in integration. Also the success of IoT linked to blockchain for timestamping and so on, making things traceable. So absolutely looking into that.
So what I really believe, because sometimes I make a joke that the 50% of the world is controlling the other 50% of the world. And I do believe that if you can implement IoT connected with blockchain technology, you can make those controllers abundant. So we are just testing a solution, an IoT solution connected to a medical device with Johnson & Johnson. And we write the data on the blockchain and then also connect it to a compliance report. Because pharmacists are all about compliance. And using IoT and blockchain, you can automate the compliance. And then you can add, of course, AI on top of it and see which paths are compliant and which are not. And then you can automate a lot. Because in pharmacists, you have a dev cycle of 3 years. And we've proven now it can be shortened to 2 months. And that's, well...
More efficient. We like that.
When it comes to IoT, I think I'm not really sure if blockchain is like the fundamental technology that needs to really accelerate IoT or really supports IoT. It could work, I think. Blockchain, of course, has a lot of characteristics that works well. That maybe the decentralized nature of blockchain. But maybe the fact that micropayments could be very efficient. I don't say that with Bitcoin and Ethereum they're very efficient, but they could be very efficient. Maybe what Ivo just told, the tangle of IOTA, near to zero transaction fees, I think, between machines. But if we look towards AI, and especially super intelligent AI, is when it really gets freaky and interesting, I think. I think that blockchain can really work well with training AIs, and especially containing them on a model, on an internet model. Internet, of course, is a very unregulated, decentralized model, which if you would let an AI or a super intelligent AI loose on the internet, scary. Maybe. It's very scary.
Maybe
the blockchain, as being part of like a top layer, could provide like this containment of an AI, a super intelligent AI, when it comes to their accountability and the permissionlessness of a blockchain. I think that is a very interesting approach of combining AI and blockchain.
Okay. Then, Mark, we're going to move to the next questions after David's comment, but do you... Yeah.
Okay. I'll try and give a quick comment then. So yeah, I think it is an exciting time. My general belief is in Ethereum, and I think Ethereum will take over everything. But when you look at sort of plasma chains and all the things that are coming out on the roadmap, Ethereum will be able to handle all this stuff, zero transaction fees, all that sort of stuff. But I think the more interesting part is the intersection of these technologies. So it's not about trying to shove AI or IoT into blockchain. It's more like how does sort of what Kai was saying, how does the technologies overlap? And I think that's where interesting stuff comes about.
Super. Yeah, so we're aware of Mark's time, so we're going to everyone say thanks a lot, Mark. Thanks a lot, Mark.
I just want to add one thing. I think we're now becoming in a time that it's really exciting, but we all know that. But but always keep in mind that history repeats itself. So what I always say, look at, Ton already said it, we're going to reinvent a lot. I was part of the internet boom, and I already see a lot of shitload things being reinvented themselves. So you all as an investors keep always an eye on what is happening behind, and not doing it from I need to trade fast and furious, but there's always logic behind it. So, gentlemen, thank you, and ladies, of course, also thanking you to keep the testosterone a little bit lower than. Yeah, gents.
Thank you. Adriana, do you want to jump up? Okay. Right. So we're going to move on to the questions. Do we want to answer the first one? Thanks a lot, Mark. Do we want to answer the first one? I guess so. Could each of you give your point of view on Blockport? It's it's great. David, you're up.
I'm like,
Jesus Christ.
Just tell them what they want to hear.
yeah. So I know the Blockport guys. I think that the team is great. All that sort of stuff. My general belief is in like decentralization. And I know like Zoe and you guys are planning to go that decentralized route. And I think it's a good approach, sort of a staggered decentralized route. But I think if centralized exchanges don't decentralize themselves, they'll eventually go out of business because there's a lot of DEXs out there already that are being used actively and that perform quite well.
Bye, Mark.
Wow. What an exit. What an exit.
On Blockport, I actually really like what you're doing here, explaining to your coin group of users what you're doing and what you're building. Also read an interesting part on your comparison to Coinbase, and that made me an instant believer to open an account at Blockport and start trading right here. It's good value for money, I believe.
Wow, I think we're all very excited. So I mean, for me, the question actually would be maybe you could give a really brief, crisp, 30-second pitch on Blockport before I make my opinion up. Yeah.
Will you be investing?
Well, let's wait for the pitch. Well, I'll give the floor to you.
All right. Blockport, as we all know it. No. We have 4 USPs, basically, unique selling points. We're very much focusing on bridging the traditional world of finance with this new digital economy. And we do this by focusing on UX, so building a super user-friendly platform that can be used by beginners and advanced traders. The second unique selling point that we have is that we want to become a social trading platform. And this basically means that lead traders or advanced traders can share their knowledge and share their experience with beginners, and beginners can learn from experienced traders on our platform by asking them questions, copying their activity, and really engaging with a lead trader. And they have to pay Blockport tokens in order to gain that knowledge, gain access to the knowledge of this lead trader.
Your 30 seconds are up.
Oh, I still have 2 USPs, Jonathan.
God damn it.
I'm gonna continue anyways. This is our meetup. So the third USP that we have is that we are connected to multiple external exchanges, which means that we effectively try to solve the chicken and egg problem that exchanges, marketplaces have when they start with a new marketplace. It's very hard to attract sellers when you don't have buyers, and it's very hard to attract sellers when you don't have buyers. We try to effectively address this by tapping into the liquidity of multiple external exchanges, and this really gives us a fast time to market. It's also allowed us to quickly list a lot of tokens on our platform, and also build up a user base relatively quickly. So in parallel, we'll also, as many of you know, we're also developing now, as Zoe also pointed out, developing our own internal matching engine. And when our user base starts to grow and becomes bigger, then we slowly try to migrate more and more trading pairs to our own internal matching engine. So unique selling point 4, and the last one, is that we aim to become a hybrid decentralized exchange, as David just mentioned, which means that within the Blockport platform, you can toggle between storing your funds in a hot wallet that can be used for high performance trading, and store your funds in a decentralized way on the blockchain, which means that whatever happens to Blockport, if you have stored them on a cold wallet, then you can still access your funds.
Woo! Yeah. Great 30. Great 30 seconds, man.
This is going to be tough because I have a 30-second attention span. So I don't remember a single word you said.
I got hybrid exchange.
But yeah, hybrid decentralized exchange, so I got the buzzwords. But no, seriously, I don't want to be... I'm not going to say I'm able to like intervene and give a perspective within 5 minutes on the company. What I do want to say is that, of course, one of the things that is important in any business is creating the network effect and having stickiness. So when you pitched me this idea just now, of course, there's a big market for it. But the question is, if you have a low technology, high market risk company, there's a lot of potential for market entrance. So the question is, how do you scale up fast enough to actually make sure that you become the player? Just look at Revolut. I was talking to the board member, David from Boleton the other week, and Revolut just raised, 250 million, going for the next 500. So essentially, the question is, will you be able to raise enough capital to keep the stickiness and user growth growing? But yeah.
Right. Great. We're going to get back to the questions. I'm sorry. So how confident are you that crypto is the 90s internet opportunity for the coming years? Is it the new bubble? Is it the new internet bubble? What's your opinion?
My opinion on crypto?
Yeah, crypto.
Well, essentially, I would say the opportunity of creating a capital market that is much more fair and making sure that everyone can enter a market is incredible. Just, for example, take a look at what Alibaba did just a year ago. They actually, what they did, they scraped, as you have a saving jar in your home, they actually have as a user on the internet, you have a lot of digital assets stored at some places, in cents, in pennies, and in dollars. They managed to, they asked their users if they could actually store that in a centralized wallet, and all of a sudden they were the biggest savings and loans company in the world, getting $17 billion in a day. So the potential of this is massive. The question is, what needs to happen before it actually before we actually get the actual adoption. One of the things that's going to help a lot is the fact that within the next 12 to 24 to 36 months, we're going to have the first correction of the market, where we're seeing the spread between long and short interest rates reaching negative rates. So when that happens, people might actually fly back into crypto faster than expected, and that could actually usually create a big influx in users as well.
Fingers crossed. 30 seconds.
Don't be so tough on me, Johnny. How confident are you that the crypto... Very hard to answer the confident level. If you look at numbers, for example, if you think that the cryptocurrency market is like the internet 3.0, there are around 30 to 40 million cryptocurrency wallets active now on Binance, Bitfinex, some exchanges, and obviously also Bitcoin wallets, mostly. If you compare that to the growth of the internet model, the internet was hosting around 30 to 35 million users in 1994. In 2000, that was like over the hundreds of millions. In that essence, and if you would like calculate it even 10 years longer than that, you would reach even hundreds of millions of users, potentially even billions, of where we are at now. In that sense, we still have a long way to go.
I think from a technology perspective, it's probably a good analogy that we're similar. But the things in crypto space, they move so fast. So from the 90s to 2010, that was a lot longer than what will happen with sort of the equivalent of crypto. From an investment perspective, I'd say if you don't understand the technology, then you shouldn't be investing or anything, because you get destroyed in the markets. So when we look at the 90s sort of .com boom and bust, there are a lot of companies, they died off, but then you had Amazon come out of that, and you had Apple, and you had all these other sort of giant companies. So I think there are some good ones coming out of it, but yeah, I think you should really understand the technology, and also because it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, unregulated global market, you get more destroyed than .com bubble, I think.
Actually, nothing further to add, apart from the fact that what I think is different, this is happening much faster than internet. So also the hype cycle will be over faster, I expect.
That's fair enough. The person who asked this question, I think it would be best if you talk to one of the guys on the panel afterwards and get their personal opinion, because there's a lot of things that can be going into this. This is the last question. The cryptocurrency market is a volatile, speculative market right now. Would you recommend people without a financial background to invest in cryptocurrency / I'm going to add blockchain-related projects?
Well, I can answer this in a really generic sense and just compare it to, for example, let's say a limited partner or an investor in my fund. So we're targeting 150 million euros, which means that essentially I don't want to have 16 billion investors in my platform because I don't think that's manageable. And I also don't want to be accountable when I go on a travel or a trip to every single of those users. So we actually get tickets in, let's say, between 1 and 5 million. And if you want to invest in a fund like ours and you can actually commit 5 million, it essentially means that you have to have somewhere between 200 million and 500, or let's say 500 million of available resources, and same goes with crypto. So just invest what you can invest, consider it gone, and take it from there. What are the interesting things about the capital markets or money? Money creates money, right? And in essence, it's always in the end about people that contain and have enough dry powder to continue on investing. So building up an equal portfolio is always a good idea. And just look at crypto as one of different, just a different asset class. So somewhere between 1 and 5% of your total portfolio could be in crypto. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I advise everyone to start doing crypto, simply to get the hang of what is a wallet, what is a blockchain, how fast can it go, what's the risks involved in it, and it's part of your future financial portfolio. So wise up. You don't need a financing background.
Yeah, I'd agree that you don't need a finance background. I think more importantly, I think if you had a technologist background or understood technology, and your time frames for investing aren't like next week or the next month, but you have sort of yearly, then you won't be swayed by sort of little market movements, as long as you understand what you're investing in.
I don't think you need a background at all, but I think you need common sense and the perseverance in order to really stand behind your own choices. If you don't feel confident with investing, don't invest. If you want to invest because you think it's a good idea to support a certain project, invest in the project. Be careful.
Good logic. All right, well, thanks a lot, guys, for joining us on this panel, and I hope you guys will learn something. Super, yeah.